Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Players Experience Podcast. On today's episode, we have former pro hockey player and co-host of Hockey Central on Sportsnet, Justin Bourne, joining us to talk about his hockey career, what it was like to go through hockey, competing in the ECHL compared to the AHL, what it's like to have a brother with a disability, working in access tourism out in BC, and all the fundraising that he wants to try and get towards that, and how to really build momentum behind that. And we also talk about his biggest motivator and mentor in life, and what his kind of words of wisdom are for the next generation of hockey athletes. Before we bring Justin onto the show, we of course would like to thank our sponsors, J. Solte Photography and Vicmar Productions, for their work on each and every episode with the images, the intro, everything around that. And shout out to 19 Marketing for the merch that is still available for the show, where you can get a t-shirt or a hat to represent the show. Also, guys, make sure to use the Players Experience discount code when talking with the Jaywalk, Hush Blankets, or the Great North Apparel to get some discount codes with them. And if you haven't done it yet, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to the channel now. So ring that bell, hit the alerts, make sure you don't miss any episodes as we bring you new and exciting content in every week to talk with more pro athletes, sport reporters, and people in sport for people that you want to hear. Now, without further ado, let's bring Justin on and the show too. Leave a comment down below, let us know, and we want to hear from you. Hey Justin, how's it going, man?
It's going good, man. Yourself?
Good. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. I know it's a hectic schedule right now. Hockey's around the corner. Things are ramping up with sports. And how are you doing with this new normal lifestyle that we're living in with COVID around?
Yeah, we're okay. You know, I've got a wife and two kids. That kept us plenty busy throughout the excess home time that so many of us suffered through. Nice to have sports back. I think that's been a nice mental relief as much as anything.
No, for sure. And you know what? Like, I'm super excited because, like, I'm big into sports myself. I know we were chatting about Special Olympics, and while Special Olympics hasn't started for me for sports up, I'm like itching and waiting. So when we can go back, I was able to play men's baseball, like men's league out in Durham here during the summer. So I was like, okay, at least I can do something. But it's definitely a strange time still. And even as we start to see sports kind of resume and in person, it's still that weird feeling of like, should I be here right now?
Yeah, no, it is. It's crazy. Like I took my son to a baseball game this summer, to a Jays game, and it's 15,000 people there, and you're sitting there beside a guy eating popcorn after a year and a half of not being near anyone. It was a real trip. So, being around people and competing again and all those things takes getting used to, but hopefully not too long before that feels normal again.
Yeah, no, fingers crossed for sure. Well, let's hop right into it. I like to start off every segment with a fun little segment called Rapid Fire. So I've got 4 questions for you, and I'm going to shoot them off at you, and just think the first thing that comes to your mind, let me know what that is.
Okay.
All right. So what is your favorite time of day?
Long shadows on a golf course. Give me dusk. I'll take dusk all day. I hate the morning.
Love it. Hey, you know what? When the sun sets on the 18th hole, it's a perfect look. It's great.
Yeah, it's my favorite.
What is your strangest thing in your fridge right now?
A bunch of weird non-alcoholic beers, probably. I've got, it's a growing field or a growing industry, the non-alcoholic beers, and so some of them don't taste awesome, but we're working on trying some different kinds.
Hey, you know what? Gotta experiment, What is, like, obviously you've had some downtime. What is a TV show that you're currently watching?
You know what I just finished was the Danbury Trashers documentary on Netflix, which was unbelievable. Turns out when you have mob ties and a bunch of face punchers on your team, it makes for a pretty good story.
Sounds interesting. I'll have to take a gander at that.
Do that.
What would be another sport that you would want to compete in outside of hockey?
I'm a golf guy. I've got a hidden Twitter account at JT Bourne Golf just because I'm like so obsessed with it. But I'm probably outside of that for a little more movement. I'd say baseball. I played till I was like 15, 16. My dad was drafted by the Astros, so he was a good player. I was a decent player too. I've been big into the Jays, too. So this past year has been a lot of fun.
That's great. And you know what? From one baseball player to another, yeah, I'm just happy you enjoy it because a lot of people say baseball's boring. I'm like, how? How do you find baseball boring?
Yeah. No, I know. I'm with you. It's almost like their initial introduction needs to not be a 2-1 game. You need to take them to one with some offense, and that'll drag them in.
So you've never watched baseball? Here's 2015, Game 5, 7th inning. Sit down for an hour, watch it.
By the way, that inning does take an hour.
That's it. Funny story before we hop in about that game. Actually, I had season seats at the time. I had 2 tickets for that game, and a buddy of mine whose dad bought one of the tickets was in Durham still, and I was obviously at the game. And it was like the 4th inning. And he's like, oh, man, I don't know if I can make it. Like, I don't know if it's really worth it. It's already the 4th inning. I was like, no. Just trust me. Get your ass down here. Make it to the game. You won't regret it. It's the 4th inning. Yeah. Okay. So he comes down. He makes it like a quarter of the way through the 7th inning, through that bottom of the 7th. And then everything happens, as we know. And then after that happens, I was like, aren't you glad you showed up? He's like, oh, yeah, I'm glad I came for this.
Yeah. Well, that's it, man. I mean, that's one of the most impactful Toronto sports moments. I was at a bar that was about 5 people deep, standing room only in there. So the chaos in there was enough. But being there must have been something special.
Oh, it was insane. I lost my voice. I was running up. I had section 510, row 1. So I was running up and down the stairs, like high-fiving everyone. Like, oh, my God, this is wild. Yeah,
that's awesome.
So how did you know that you wanted to become a pro hockey player?
I think a lot of people think that because my dad played in the NHL that like that would have been some sort of like predetermined outcome or something. But I kind of, I got good quickly when I was old. I wasn't a great player when I was 12, 13, 14. And then I grew like 6 inches. I could always score, but then I also got big. And all of a sudden opportunities started to show up. And I was like, I just wanted to go to school. And I was like, if I could get a university degree out of this hockey thing, that would be really cool. And yeah, I guess I'm a prototypical late bloomer. I wish I had bloomed a little earlier. I could have got some better teams and some better coaching might have helped me get a little bit farther. But honestly, for me, it was just a matter of wanting to get to school. And then once I got to school, I ended up being a top scorer on my team. And I started being, like I might have something here. And I never really thought of it as a serious plan, but I took it as far as I could.
Well, and now talking about taking it as far as you could, you ended up playing 4 years in the ECHL and 1 year in the AHL. What did you find was the biggest difference between those 2 leagues and the competition level between the 2?
A lot of people think with the AHL and the NHL that like skating would be a big difference, but it's not. Like AHL and NHL, you have amazing skaters, amazing athletes. But there's the NHL level, it's just like a little bit crisper. Guys are in their positions better, a little bit more organized. The AHL to the ECHL, the skating is worlds different. Like the speed, when I first got called up from the ECHL to the American League, I was like, I don't think I should be here, But then you sort of give it a little bit of time and get your feet under you and you realize you can hang. But it's, I would say just straight up speed.
Now, if it makes you feel any better, have you seen the movie Goon?
I have, of course.
I am like Sean William Scott. Doug Glatt, when he walks onto the ice with figure skates on, I cannot skate with the ship. Like, it takes me, dude, it takes me 5 minutes to do 1 lap around the ice. Like, yeah. I'm just like, all right, I push with my right, okay, I'm still up. Push with my left, I'm still up. That's me skating, so.
Terrible, too, because I take my, 5-year-old son, and you see, the 3- and 4-year-olds that their parents are, super into it. Some of those kids bomb around there. Your parents are to blame. They should have got you on skates early. It's easy then.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, you know what? I got into baseball. I won a couple championships for
Worked out
Special
okay.
Olympics so far, so it worked out.
Yeah.
Now, in 2008, you got to play in the ECHL All-Star Game. What was that experience like for you to be named an All-Star and show off your skills in a really dominant year that you had with the ECHL?
It was all my whole career. I feel like was kind of unplanned, where it's just like, let's see if I'm good enough. And every time I got to a level, and I was like, oh, I am good enough. Then I had the moment where like, wait, I'm not just good enough. Am I better than this guy? Like I started, you start to sort of find yourself. And the All-Star Game was one of those levels where, I felt like I was an American Hockey League player and not an ECHLer, and it was cool to be there, and I was proud to be there, and I'm still very proud that I managed to get there. But it was like an epiphany moment for me where I was like, I'm here, and I feel like a decent player here. And I hope that doesn't sound like arrogant or something, but it was like for me the process of being like, okay, like I think I can do the next tier, and then I managed to play more games in the American League. The next year, I was injury riddled. Maybe we'll get to that, and things didn't pan out. But it was just another stepping stone for me to where I was trying to get.
It's like high school, man. You got to find the biggest guy in the room, make sure you can knock him down a notch, make sure you can compete to his level, and then you're good.
Yeah, once you get a sense for where, what's, by the way, one summer I skated with like Danny Heatley, and I was like, okay, so I'm never going to be that. Never. No matter how hard I train or whatever, So there, he was context for me that I was never going to be among the best, but I still hoped I could get to the same level.
Now, you said that you didn't really want to talk about your injury.
No, that's fine. It's fine.
That's fine? All right. Yeah. So, because you in 2009, after a good sprout in the ECHL, AHL, and that, you ended up stepping away in 2009 because of a jaw injury. And while it's never good to go away from sport because of an injury, as most hockey players do, you're still heavily involved in hockey, covering it with Sportsnet. Right now as a co-host on Hockey Central. You've taken time with the Marlies as an assistant coach with video production, things like that. What's it like to take your knowledge of hockey and talk about the up-and-coming side of the game on a daily basis and kind of from your injury, turn that into a positive?
Yeah, well, first off, I really appreciate that you sort of, made that connection, because for me that was what it was about. Was I didn't want all my education in hockey when I was done, and when I had a couple MCL tears and a shattered jaw. I played like 11 games that last year, and I started blogging because I wanted to use my education in hockey. Like I grew up in dressing rooms with my dad playing for the Islanders and Kings, and then on through my own playing career. And it was it's not all I knew, but it's what I knew best. So getting to not waste that education was important to me, and I think it's similar to what I talked about with my own playing career. It's like finding out where I fit in that industry. Like, am I a good enough writer to be, seen in mainstream writing places? Am I good enough at radio? And you just kind of feel yourself out and compare yourself as you go. And I don't know, I think other people had thought out their life a little bit more. And I'm just kind of I don't know, see how today goes. And so far it's gone fairly well.
And it's funny that you say that, though, because in the world that we live in with COVID and the new normal, there is such a turnover in jobs, in people kind of reaching their maximum tipping point, I'll say. And I've noticed it with organizations I'm involved with. I've noticed it in organizations that I have friends in, where it's like you just need a new refresher. And really, I think COVID is starting to show that. And it's just going to be an interesting spell into 2022 to see how things are going to circulate with jobs and how we're going to live with this new kind of am I going to just show up one day and see what happens, or am I going to go in try and guns a-blazing and see if I can get something, right?
Yeah, it is going to be different. I'm curious to see, how jobs evolve. The sports media right now, I get a sense, first off, going to the office is less of a thing, I think, right? Everyone's able to work from home. And so everyone, with the way the internet works in general, so I think COVID and sped up our reliance on the internet, right? We're all on it more and we need it more. And it kind of puts everyone in media on a level playing field. Your podcast here, there's no reason this can't get the same exposure if people like it and share it. It can do as well as the next thing. So people can kind of be independent contractors a little bit. And I'm curious to see how that affects some of the major players. Obviously, I'm with Sportsnet, and I like to think we're kind of the big dogs, but there are people who do their own work and work on the internet and have successful Patreons and all these other things. And yeah, I think it kind of hopefully levels the playing field for people, and talent is easier to discover.
Exactly, because like sports, talent, there's everyone will apply, but only so many get in.
Yeah, no, that's right. And they always say in hockey with scouting, doesn't matter where you play, if you're good, they'll find you. And that's mostly true. I think it's becoming true of sports media too.
Exactly. Now, looking at like staying on the same train as like looking at the biggest takeaways and this COVID lifestyle, what do you think for this upcoming season with the NHL is going to be the biggest challenge or like accomplishment that the league needs to really work on? We saw obviously last season during the playoffs, like Montreal, for example, I'm just mentioning the Canadian division. But with Montreal, they let 7,500 fans in. You saw with the Leafs, they let frontline workers in, which was great and was really supportive. But this year, like a lot of companies and organizations and businesses are saying, like, you need to be double vaxxed to go to a game, and you need to do this, this, and this in order to go. What do you think the biggest challenge for a team in the NHL or any kind of sports team for that matter is going to have to face with this new normal?
Yeah, that's a good question. It is the biggest challenge is, can you fill the buildings and can you play every game? Because finances are getting crushed around the league. Revenues took a hit with the assumption we would get back to normal hopefully around now. So the NHL's biggest thing is playing every game and not having to postpone games because of COVID, and also getting the players to the Olympics. Because as much as the NHL might not want that, they don't make any money off it. It's so important for the sport of hockey globally. It's in China. I'm told there's a fairly sizable population in that country. Might be one you want to appeal to. So I think if the league can do a good job of keeping the games on track and the players healthy so they can get to the Olympics, fill the buildings, it'll be a success. Anything other than that, I don't think they care. I think those are the league's sole focus, even if that's not the case for the individual teams.
Yeah, it'll be great to see NHL players compete back in the Olympics and get back in there, because it was definitely a missed opportunity prior.
Yeah, no, we need it. We deserve it as hockey fans. We put up with a lot of garbage. They can give us one best-on-best tournament every 4 years.
Now, I want to shift your focus or the conversation for a second to your brother and what great work he's doing. So being in sport and having a brother with a disability who works with Access Tourism out in BC, what does it mean for you to be involved in sport and see how sport connects people with disabilities, and to really come together, compete, and make that social gathering that we all strive for as individuals, but also kind of like wanting to do more what you were saying about wanting to raise more awareness and funds for them?
Yeah, that's huge for me, and it's something where in my life, like I mentioned, I didn't have a lot of career goals. One of the things I do want to do is be a fundraiser for causes that matter to my brother. He's got spina bifida and scoliosis, hydrocephalus. Spina bifida being the main focus for him. And I guess it means everything because he's so passionate about sports, and it's connected us. I played wheelchair sports growing up, and it helped us bond. And I've played sledge hockey, and he's run me over a dozen times. And he had a golf cart where he was actually able to like swivel the seat, hit the ball like a personal golf cart thing. It was really cool. So it's been a bonding point for our life, and sports do that in general, right? Like a lot of parents want their kids in sports because it does bring people together. I think it's one of the great unifiers. So love sports for it, and I want to do more for the disabled community. Hopefully, if I can get my profile to a level where I'm able to raise some money. I know you've done well. I'd like to be able to do that too one day.
No, and that's great because it's definitely a challenge to get going, but it's just talking to the right people, getting the right connections, and then kind of moving forward. And even if you think, hey, you know what, we're only going to raise $1,000 one year, that'll double and then triple and then quadruple the upcoming years.
Yeah, just a matter of getting started. I know that's next on my plate. Now that we're through COVID and my kids are in school and daycare, it's probably time to focus on bigger goals.
All right, kids, you got your homework. Daddy's got his homework now.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's going to sit at the table and get to work here.
Now, talking about the inspirations among family, a lot of individuals have mentors in their life. Who was the biggest mentor for you growing up that kind of pushed you to success and pushed you to where you want to be today?
I guess there's two people one is just my mom. Everyone thinks that my dad was around. And it sounds like a corny answer, my mom, but like my dad was off coaching hockey, and she was a single mother with a disabled son, and me traveling around the world. So I have to mention her. But then I have an uncle named Ken Juba, who wrote for the Star Phoenix in Saskatoon, and he's a sports writer. And so when I first got injured and I started blogging, it was his idea that I start a blog. And when I had opportunities to write, he edited my work. And he's encouraged me that I'm good enough to do this and showed me how to. I didn't take any writing or have any formal media training. And he's been the guy who has really helped guide my next decade of my career. So I'm very grateful for having that help. Unusual, an uncle who lives in another province able to help out, but meant a lot to me, and he still means a lot to me.
Well, first off, the uncle's great because finding a writer to do anything is extremely difficult. And number two, never say that your mom is your biggest motivator is corny, because that's the same answer I would give any day of the week. Yeah.
No, it's, very few people are, I don't know. I guess I just feel fortunate that, she wasn't didn't just feed and clothe me and not pay attention. But to this day, at 38 years old, I talk to her and she helps guide and steer, and I just hope I can do that for my kids one day too.
Well, that's incredible. And hey, you know what? Like they say with genetics, it all trickles down.
Yeah, here's to hoping.
Now, we had a fan question coming in. There's a lot of debate around Ovechkin and Gretzky, and if Ovechkin will pass Gretzky on the leaderboard. What's your take on it, and do you think that's a possibility, and how do we see that happening?
Well, I've dug in on this take. I'm such a hater. I don't think he's going to do it. So David Amber hosts Hockey Central on Mondays over the past year, and he loves Ovi in the chase for Gretzky's record. The math is there for him. He's 35 goals a year for the next 5 years. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's attainable. And if he can put up 40 or another number higher than that in the next year or two and bite that off, it's there. But we talk about that, 35 goals in a season. You know how hard that is? 5 years in a row at age 90 or whatever Ovechkin's going to be. I don't know, mid-30s. But really,
you don't like 90, especially with his hair color.
I know. So I'm such a hater. I'm the guy who's going to – the guy is going to have to be the one who said I was wrong when it happens and I won't get to enjoy it. But here I am.
You know what's going to be funny? I can picture it now. So, Ovechkin's going to be on his, last year, he's going to say, guys, you know what? This is going to be my retirement year, right? Because I feel like Ovechkin's going to be the kind of guy that doesn't just, during the summer say, hey, guys, that's it for hockey. I'm done.
He's having a farewell tour.
He'll want to have a farewell tour for sure. So I feel like he'll be the guy where, I don't know what Gretzky's number is, but say it's 700. Ovechkin will be at 698 at the end of the year. He'll be like, oh, shit. And then he'll come back for the next year for 2 games.
Yes.
Score, get over it. All right, guys, I'm good. See ya.
Or he'll throw $1 million to the goaltender in the team in game 82 and say, just let me pile a couple in there. Yeah. Let me get the record. They'll get out of the way and it'll be ceremonial or something like that. But if this guy if he's not great at the end of his career, and everyone's just put him out as a PP specialist. It's makes $9.5 million a year. You're going to have him out there and take slap shots 2 minutes a game? I just have a tough time seeing how it ends, and I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I wish him success. It's just my take.
No, hey, this is why I ask these questions, because the people want to know.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Now, I like to wrap up every show I do with another segment I call called Words of Wisdom. So what advice or words of wisdom would you want to give to the next generation of athletes or the next generation of individuals who really want to compete at the highest level and try and make a name for themselves?
Well, I guess there's on-ice and off-ice wisdom. The on-ice the off-ice stuff is that everyone I know who treats people well off the ice is still involved in hockey because people want them around and they ask them to be around and they get to stay in the game. You know, like having the game and the people involved in it being bigger than yourself is a pretty good goal for off the ice. On the ice, you know, I mentioned so many times the whole confidence thing about like, hey, I found out at that level I could do it. And then I tried, and then it took me a while to realize I could do it. You know, I guess believing that you can do it, and that also sounds corny, but by believing in yourself, I mean challenging the opposition. Like, I wish that earlier in my career, when I was skating down the wing, I just challenged the D-man straight up with my speed and said, you know, see if you can keep up. And maybe he can. See if the next guy can keep up and challenge him because someone can't. You're not the weakest link out there, you know? So if you keep challenging people, eventually you break through. Often we settle. You know, I'm thinking of one-on-one rushes, and you just pull up in front of a guy and say, well, you know, I'm probably not going to get by him. But you don't know. You don't know, and that's the old thing about you just keep beating down the door, and you find out. Same thing with shooting. Like, goalie's probably going to catch this from out here. Well, shoot it hard, shoot his glove, and make him make the save. Challenge him to make the save. Challenge people every day, and you find out that there's a lot more weak links out there than you think.
No, and that's great advice because there's so many people that want to just get out there, like I said earlier, guns a-blazing, try and like, oh, I'm going to do everything, and then they overthink it, and then they screw up, and then that's it, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of what I mean by challenging people. Like, don't assume someone's going to stop you. Don't assume the goalie's going to save it. Don't assume the other guy's going to keep up with you. Just challenge people. I like that idea.
Well, Justin, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. I really appreciate it. It'll be an interesting hockey season for sure, but I look forward to all your work on Sportsnet moving forward. And if you guys haven't watched Justin on it, Sportsnet 590, Hockey Central, catch him for all the intel. And thanks, Justin, again for hopping on.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it and look forward to following the players' experience and everything you're doing too.
Thank you so much.